We now have 8 board members here. So I am going to call the meeting to order of CC Power and ask that General Counsel Brittany verify our meeting quorum.
I can verify that there is a quorum present.
Thank you so much. We are now moving to item 3, and there have been no matters brought to my attention subsequent to posting the agenda. So we are now moving to item 4, where public comment. Any member of the public may address the board of directors concerning any matter not on the agenda. The members who want to address the board, please do raise your hand. I'll recognize you. Not seeing any raised hands, I will now move to the consent agenda and ask if any board member would like to remove an item from the consent. And if I don't see any move to do that, I would like to have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Mitch moving, Matthew seconding. Thank you. Brittany, could you conduct the vote for this item, please?
Yes, so for the consent agenda,
Mr. Chair, just point of order, should we ask for public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Good point. Thanks for the catch. Public comment on the consent agenda. Not seeing any hands raised, I'll bring it back to the board and ask Brittany to conduct the vote.
Okay, thank you for that. So for the consent agenda, Central Coast Community Energy.
Yes.
Clean Power San Francisco.
Yes.
East Bay Community Energy, I believe is absent. Marin Clean Energy.
Yes.
Peninsula Clean Energy.
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority.
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy, absent. Silicon Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power Authority.
Yes.
And Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
The consent agenda passes.
Thank you, Brittany. We'll now move to the regular agenda. Item 6A is the General Manager's report. And Tim, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, board members. Mr. Chair, this didn't cross my mind until this moment, but I am reminded that our next board meeting is not scheduled for the 3rd Wednesday of November. It is the 2nd Wednesday of November. And so I wanted to give people a heads up. It should be on your calendar, but if you're like me, going through your calendar in your mind, this one would catch you by surprise. So please keep that in mind as you're preparing your own calendars. Brittany, if you would go to the 2nd slide on the deck that I had provided. Need to manage my screen here. This threw me for a loop. Second, thank you. I got it under control, I think. This slide was presented to the board on October 8th when we were reviewing the decision of the board to make notice of the consideration of the long duration storage resources. I want to point out on step 1, at the end of it, it says today. In reality, that is October 8th. And so this was presented by the General Counsel in order to be able to give you all an overview of the review and approval process that we have in front of us. Step 1, as I mentioned, was conducted on October 8th when you gave the notice of consideration. We see in the timeline what it is that we have in front of us through the step 2 and December 8th, step 3 with the further review and consideration by member agencies, and then anticipating approvals, we would go into step 4 with the ESSA in effect for the Power Tumbleweed project. I don't want to spend time getting into the particulars of this slide, but what I wanted to be able to do is use it as a reference point for you. Tomorrow, what is going to happen is that you will receive a package of confidential draft contracts. They will reflect the current state of the negotiations. And we're intending that you'll be able to use those as you make progress toward the December 8th decision. The other thing that I want to point out in this slide is the statement at the very bottom. The process will be repeated for additional LDS project agreements. This really ties, well, first off, we do have additional LDS projects that are in the negotiation process. Our expectation is that we will be presenting them to the board at some point in the future. But the other thing that I want to point out is a theme really that we have here, and that is that until a couple of months ago, we really didn't have our arms around what the review and approval process would be. We spent time developing this, and inevitably what's going to happen is that we'll learn some lessons that we will apply to future projects that come forward. And the theme that I want to bring to your attention is that that is precisely what it is that we're trying to do when we get into the budget that will be part of a later discussion today, is that we have been using each of these steps going forward to not just make progress on the long duration storage project, for instance, but we're also using this in a manner that can be repeated when we have future projects coming forward. And so it just struck me that it was an important point to be able to raise with you today as we reflect on where it is that we are with the long duration storage project, an extremely important place that we've attempted to achieve for a long time, but we're trying to do something here that can be repeated. And so that's what I wanted to convey to you with regard to the long duration storage project update. Chris, if you go to the second slide, I'm sorry, the third slide. You've also seen this slide presented to you, and this was presented on our September 15th board meeting when you were asked to authorize the issuance of the Firm Clean Resources RFO. We have a timeline that is associated with that. And what you should know is that this Friday, that RFO is going to be issued. And what our expectation is that through the remainder of this year and till around mid-September, the RFO is going to be going through the response, the review and analysis, and then it will get into the point where in mid-February, we will be giving consideration to the shortlisting. And at that point, it comes back for CC Power to lead in the negotiations or bring in the negotiating team in order to be able to push the project across the finish line as well. The thing to point out here is that similar to what I had mentioned in regard to long duration storage, what we're doing, if you look at the bullet 2 and 3, is that we're leveraging what it is that we had accomplished with the long duration storage project, in that we're intending to utilize the joint contracting approach that we developed then for the contracting effort for the firm clean resources. Furthermore, what we've done is we've applied lessons learned that are in the review and evaluation phase that will be coming to next. And it's another example of where it is that we've used what we've accomplished and learned in the long duration storage contracting effort and applying it to what follows on the heels. Let me see, I think that the other thing to point out significantly is that the RFO will go out with the board's workforce, environmental and environmental justice policy that will be the policy that will apply to the developers' activities to bring the project to construction. So, Mr. Chair, those are the several things that I wanted to mention in regard to both of these projects with this update, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board on the general manager's report? Okay, none. Since this is not action, I should know this, but maybe Jeff can help me with this. Do we go for public comment for this one?
Ask our counsel. I'm not the expert.
Brittany?
Yeah, pursuant to the new AB 361 rules, I would go to public comment for each agenda item.
Thank you so much, General Counsel. Let me ask if there's any member of the public who has any comment on the general manager's report. Not seeing any raised hands, we'll bring it back and go to item 6B, which is again back to Tim Haynes, our general manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This action is to appoint treasurer, controller, and the designation to receive service on behalf of CC Power. There's no memo or presentation associated with this. There is a resolution, and you could go to that, Chris. Excuse me. What I would like to say is that by law and pursuant to the Joint Powers Agreement, CC Power needs to have a treasurer controller appointed. One individual can serve in both capacities. I've spoken to Tom Habashi several times. He's interested in filling in this role. I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to work with Tom in this capacity. We have the, and part of the reason for that is that Tom is going to be able to bring his insights and depth of knowledge into the budget matters. And I think increasingly they merit greater attention. And so we'll be able to utilize him just in that capacity. And the other thing is that what will happen is that I'll be providing support to Tom in this capacity, as well as Mayor Accountancy, who has provided the back office support in the accounting practices that we have in place. So with that, the staff's recommendation is the board appoint board member Habashi as the treasurer and controller of CC Power.
Thank you, Tim. There are two, and then designating yourself to receive service on behalf of the board.
Thank you.
Let me ask if the board has any questions of Tim on this item. Not seeing any raised hands, I'll now go to the public to see if there's, are there any comments on this item? Not seeing raised hands, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and potential introduction of a motion.
I would be happy to move approval and add to Tom's plate.
Barbara Hale seconds.
Okay, thank you. I will make sure that he knows who moved and seconded via text message.
Since he isn't here, can we volunteer him for something else too?
I have to consult with general counsel if we can change the agenda. But noted. All right, Brittany, could you take us to vote on this one, please?
Yes. So for resolution 21-1014, Community Energy,
Yes.
Clean Power San Francisco,
Yes.
East Bay Community Energy,
Yes.
Marin Clean Energy,
Yes.
Peninsula Clean Energy,
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority,
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy, I believe is absent, Silicon Valley Clean Energy,
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power Authority,
Yes.
Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
The resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to item 6C, which is the introduction of the 2022 budget. And we have a presentation, I believe, to be provided by Tim, our general manager.
Yes, we do. Board members, first, thank you for the appointment of Tom into this position. As I said, I'm looking forward to being able to work with him on the budget, as well as other finance issues that we have in front of us. Brittany, I'm sorry, Chris, if you would go to the third slide in this deck. The CC Power budget is relatively small compared to the budgets that I imagine you are typically working with. And so I appreciate you taking the time to be able to help me as I'm working through development of the 2022 budget. No matter how small budgets are, they seem to have sensitivity that is associated with them. But I think that perhaps more importantly, with this matter, I want to be able to use this and engage you in order to be able to continue what it is that you've begun in standing up CC Power. As I mentioned before, what we're developing in matters in 2021 are what we intend to apply as we go into 2022, and we're going to we'll see how it is that application is going to occur. This slide provides the next steps, the calendared items that we'll have in front of the board. It'll ultimately lead to an approval of the budget and consulting contracts in December. Today, what I want to do is take a little bit of time to walk you through the 2021 budget and offer some of my observations with regard to that budget and what it could mean for the 2022 budget. We'll also take the time to be able to walk you through some of the steps that I intend to take in order to develop the project. We'll come back to you in November. And with that, we will give you a review of what it is that I've found as I've delved more deeply into the 2022-2021 budget, particularly looking at the invoices that we've received that have supported the budget. In November, we'll provide you with the budget assumptions and the activities that we're applying, and give you a draft of the 2022 budget. I think the overarching expectation that I have as we get into this is that we are going to do what we can in order to be able to capitalize on the successes that we've had in 2021 in order to be more efficient and reduce costs in 2022. Chris, if you go to the next slide, I might be able to get into that last thought with a little bit more substance. This provides the overview of the 2021 budget. And you see that what we've done is we've broken it into two categories: general and long duration storage project. The general manager and general counsel are responsible for the day-to-day operation and of CC Power. And so you'll see that the charges that are assessed or that are budgeted in association with these amounts are listed here. These are provided under a retainer type of structure for both the general manager, general counsel. The support functions are associated with finance activities, and so are provided by Mirror Accountancy. The charges for these budgeted items are on an equal share basis. So each of you are basically paying $12,300 a year in order to be able to have CC Power function. The long duration storage project, that in addition to the GM and the general counsel, you have the negotiating team that charges to this budget item, as well as then analytical support that we've had to go through the long duration storage projects. The thing that draws my attention when I look at this is the $506,626 bottom line for the long duration storage project. That was a 10-month project. And if you just look at it at a very high level, what we see is that we incurred about $50,000 a month in order to be able to support the long duration storage project. And as I'm extrapolating into what this means for 2022, the easy thing to do would be, if you recall, on the Firm Clean Resources timeline, that will be back in front of CC Power and budgeted by you or the project participants from mid-February through July. And what we could do is simply say $50,000 a month times 4.5 months is going to lead to this charge for the Firm Clean Resources. I think that there's some elegance in that simplicity, but I also know that there are reasons why that's not enough. And an example of that is that when I look at the 3 or 2.5 months that we used in order to be able to develop contracts for the long duration storage, those were some of our more expensive months. And so perhaps we can save even more. But I think the point to leave with you is that this is a quick and dirty observation that we could make, but we're gonna fall into a trap that we need to avoid as we go through and we develop the budget for 2022. We need to make sure that certainly we unpack these invoices, and we need to be able to convince ourselves that what we have is an accurate forecast of the activities and the schedule that are going to be necessary in order to be able to bring the Firm Clean Resources across the finish line. And that same general observation applies to other activities, be they project or in a general nature, as we're developing the 2022 budget. Along those lines, what we expect is that we'll soon adopt a board position as it relates to policies, and we need to reflect back on what it is that that cost and how much of that can we anticipate avoiding in the future. But I think that we also need to recognize that 2022 is going to be replete with new activities that it'll be difficult for us to be able to anticipate now, and we need to be able to take into consideration as we're developing that forecast of activities and schedule for 2022. I think that that's as much as I want to say about this particular slide. There, we can see where there's opportunities, but we need to be careful about oversimplifying what that means in terms of potential savings when we get into the 2022 budget. Chris, if you go to the next slide, please. What I will undertake is to develop a set of assumptions that we'll use for the budgeting process. An example is how many board meetings are we going to have in 2022? How many projects will we have in phase 3, phase 2 for project development? And so we need to be able to be clear with those type of assumptions as we're assembling this budget. I will delve into the invoices that have been the bases of the charges that have been incurred in 2021 in order to be able to gain more insight into our cost structure. We will end up having to spend time in order to be able to identify the activities that are associated with projects that will be in phase 2. And I think that what we also need to recognize is that we're going to be stepping into a new realm when we bring long duration storage projects into phase 3. We'll have a project oversight committee set up, but we're going to need to be able to begin to unpack the contracts that we have in place, better understand what our rights and obligations and risks are, and come up with a structure that the project oversight committee is going to be able to follow in order to be able to keep pace with the contractual rights and obligations. And at this point in time, we don't have anything in place that is going to be something that we can repeat in that area. So again, we'll be developing new processes and activities as these projects make their way through the process. We will end up having to draft consulting contracts in order to be able to support the phase 3 activities, but as well for those that are going to be coming into phase 2 with the firm clean resources. And of course, we want to be able to make sure that we've got this budget benchmarked in order to be able to give you perspective as to how it compares. If you go to the next slide. This is a repeat of what it is that I mentioned in regard to what we have in front of us for November, but those steps that had been mentioned in the past slide, we're hoping to be able to use in order to be able to come back and provide this information to you at the November 8th board meeting. So, Mr. Chair, this is what I wanted to discuss as an overview for the 2022 budget.
Thank you, Tim. That was quite a detailed overview of where we are and what you plan to be bringing to us in the next 2 months. Let me ask if the board has any comments or questions of you. Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Krish. Tim, can you sorry for a newbie question, the negotiation team, what does that consist of?
For the long duration storage project, we have Gridwell Consulting as the lead negotiator, and we have Keys and Fox as the legal support for those negotiations. And then separately, we brought on a technical team in order to be able to help evaluate storage resources.
And that's consultant based as well, the technical team.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that question.
I'm sorry, the technical team, that's consultant based as well.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay. I'll now go to the public and ask if you have any comments on this item. Not seeing any raised hands, I'll bring it back to the board. There's no action required on this item. So this would be the end. We'd look forward to November and December. And we are now at item 6D, discussion of any individual member items. Not seeing any raised hands. Thank you very much. We'll now move to Brittany. Are we good to adjourn this meeting at this point?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. So we will adjourn the meeting at 1:38 p.m. Thank you all for attending and see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.